Hi guys, welcome to this episode of the Lean Muscle Warriors podcast. Today we have an amazing guest from Australia. His name is Conor O'Shea, and you're originally from Ireland, aren't you, Conor?
Yes, yeah. So I'm Irish, but I've lived in Australia for 5 years.
Okay. How are you today? Thanks for coming and joining us on today's episode.
Thanks for having me, and good to meet you as well. I know we've been in the group together for a few months, but we've never actually talked together. So it's nice to talk to you today.
Yeah, me and Conor are colleagues in terms of online training. We are both in the online training academy from Jonathan Goodman. We're gonna have him guest tonight. So yeah, it'd be fun to know more about it. And I'm curious, Conor, who do you help? Who are you focusing on working online?
Yeah, so I specifically help guys in their 30s. The guys that I guess I best serve and coach are guys who are looking to build strength and eliminate pain, and also drop some body fat. But generally, the main thing people come to me for is to get around pain. And I'm someone who's had a lot of injuries in my life in my 20s. I'm in my early 30s now. So from a lot of my own personal experience, I just kind of learned about how to best manage stuff and get the best outcomes going forwards. And that's the category of people that I think I can best serve going forwards as well.
Very interesting. And I'm curious, how come did you get into training, and how did you start your fitness career?
Yeah, so I studied sports science. I studied in Edinburgh in the UK, and after 4 years there, I went back to Ireland and I did personal training. So I did a personal training certification. I worked in Ireland for 2 years as a personal trainer. In that time, I did precision nutrition as well. And then after 2 years, I decided to go traveling. So I went to Asia. I went to India for 4 months and I did a yoga teacher training course there. And then I moved to Thailand for 1.5 years and I worked as a yoga teacher and an English teacher. So I did 2 years in Asia. And it was a really good experience. And like we were kind of just talking about this before the call started, but after 2 years, I felt that my, I guess, prospects for my career were being a bit hindered by staying in Thailand for any longer. And I wanted to, I guess, be around better coaches, be around more people, like a better fitness industry and better scene where I could learn and mentor with people. So for Irish people, it's very common to go to Australia for 1 year or 2, or Australia or Canada are generally the countries that they go to. And both countries have a much better fitness scene. So I went to Melbourne, moved to Melbourne, and was planning on staying there for 2 years. And 5 years later, I'm still in Australia.
Hey, did you have to
my fiance is Australian.
Okay. And I'm curious, like when after the first 2 years, did you have to do the work in the farms? Because I know many Italians, they have like this working holiday visa, and if you want to renew them, that you have to do some work in the farm or some sort of yeah.
It's a really it's a tricky one. And I guess I came to Australia, I just started working as a trainer in a gym. I started my own business. It's actually going into its 5th year in January. So after the first year, I basically got a 1-year visa, and I needed to decide whether I was going to do farm work for 3 months to get an extension or not. But my business was actually doing really well. So I didn't want to stop and leave and then go to the countryside for 3 months and just pick fruit. So I went on a student visa. So I was on a student visa for a few years. And now myself and my partner are on a partner visa, basically, which makes it a lot easier to stay in Australia.
Nice. Yeah, I like it. And from a coaching perspective, you said that you help guys in their 30s getting stronger, more flexible and pain-free. So I'm curious, like, how does the coaching process works when you start working with a new client? Do you do any sort of assessment, and how how do you address like the current pain, and how do you work on helping the person getting pain free?
Yeah, great question. So I'll just use like kind of the average guy that I work with is generally, let's just say he's a guy in his 30s, he's got lower back pain, and he's had it for, you know, about 2 years, we'll say. And he's probably pretty active in his teens, in his 20s. He probably played a lot of sports, and then for whatever reason, his body just starts breaking down. So what basically happens, we sign up for the program together, he joins my program, and then we do, because it's online, we do a Zoom call. In the Zoom call, I do a mobility assessment. In that mobility assessment, I can see where his restrictions are, where he's tight and weak, and where his imbalances are. And then with that information, I'll design an individualized program, and that program will take into account his current exercise level, his access to equipment, because a lot of people don't have, gym access, and especially this year in particular, gyms are closed. So people are working with limited equipment, his time availabilities, and also, his goals going forward. So what he's specifically trying to achieve. Is it just back pain, or does he want to, build strength in a certain area, or, get stronger in a certain area as well? Mm-hmm. And then that program changes every 4 weeks, depending on how he's responding. But also we work with what I've really realized over the last 2 years, especially because I've had a lot of chronic back pain as well, and I've resolved it in the last 2 years, is looking at the environmental factors that are leading to that back pain. Because I guess the hardest thing to realize when you are a guy who used to be very athletic and then you hurt yourself is you don't get away with the same things that you used to get away with. So when I'll analyze, how they're spending their day, so how active they are in the day with like non-exercise activity, like an eat non-exercise activity thermogenesis, and we'll assess that and look at how many steps he's doing a day, and really start addressing that, getting him moving a lot more throughout the day, because that's just a simple, like, low-hanging fruit option that we can implement straight away to get him good outcomes.
Yeah, I love it. Since the coronavirus outbreak, people are surely sitting more, and I'm sure that amongst your people, your client, you have found that like their posture certainly during this lockdown didn't improve. So what's in your? I'm curious. Like as a coach, we always try to simplify, and I'm sure that you found as well like one factor that impact the most people's pain. Is it more like how they currently execute the exercise? Is it the fact that they just don't think about it, so they're not aware of their posture most of the time? You mentioned something about environmental factors. I'd like to dig deeper into that. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it's really interesting when you start analyzing your own patterns during the day and other people's patterns. And I think what I found really interesting with this year, like most of my clients started working from home, and you would think if you work from home, you have more time to do more movement and go for a walk in the morning and all that stuff. But people's activity actually went down, and they found that they were actually working longer hours. They were stuck to their desk, and they just actually were less active. So we just really started looking at that and got them, because, the walking to the tram, walking to the bus, going to the office, going for a coffee, all these things just disappeared, and they just went to their kitchen to get a coffee and back to their desk. So all that incremental movement disappeared from people's lives this year, which I found really interesting, but also very damaging if they had a back issue or a chronic pain issue. So dialing in that kind of stuff, building that habit around how we can build more activity into their day, and also getting them to understand that that's a real priority, like that they maybe don't think that they need to do, because a lot of the times they'll feel, I just need to do my 3 sessions a week and that's going to cover everything. But it's a different, approach when you have lower back pain and you can't get away with this stuff like you used to before.
Yeah, and I don't know about your experience in particular to this topic, but in my experience, sometime like the pain have a threshold, and like some people, they start training and they say, you know, I have a really bad pain on the knee, for example, and then they start getting into training with some exercise that don't really impact their problem, and after a few weeks into training, their pain disappear. And so I believe that people underestimate the power of movement. But what do you think about it?
Definitely, like 100%. A lot of people think that it's like a lot of people that I work with they'll have it for many years as well. And an example is one of my guys, he had chronic back pain for 7 years. So a big part of the pain becomes an identification, meaning he identifies as someone who has back pain. So the actual physical pain might be gone, but the psychological pain is actually still there, and he's expecting to get back pain when he does a certain activity.
Yeah.
So it's a really interesting field, because what we do then is we rewire his brain in a way that getting him to get confidence in movement patterns, safe movement patterns, and that starts building confidence in his belief system about how he is. He's realizing he's not pulling up sore or getting inflamed or having that pain. And then he's getting that strength like you talked about. So the pain is starting to disappear, or it's gone already, but it's just in his head. And then we start loading the movement with, you know, things like, I guess one of the biggest lessons for me in my 2-year recovery was deadlifting was actually the best thing for my back pain once I was able to do it, and once I did it properly. Whereas before I would avoid it. And I guess a big issue people make when it comes to getting injured or being in pain is they start avoiding stuff because it's painful, but then they stop doing everything and they get weaker. And when they're weaker, they're getting more injury prone, and then it just gets worse and worse and worse, if that makes sense.
I so agree on that. And I think we're talking about an identity shift where, you know, Conor, I've been a professional swimmer many years in the past, well, most of my life, more than I've been an online trainer for. And
professional swimmer, did you say?
Yeah, swimmer. Yeah.
Oh, right. I didn't know that about you at all.
Yeah. And, you know, it's very common to have shoulder pain between swimmers. And actually, I can see myself when you said, you know, you think that you are someone with the pain. So you identify as the person with the pain. So it becomes much more difficult to get rid of the pain if you think so. Whether other people, well, sometimes, you know, it's the difference between saying, okay, I am working on making my teeth whiter, or I have a beautiful smile, right? You can work on your pain, or you can be someone who have back pain.
Exactly.
Yeah,
very true. So true. Yeah. And like, I guess the interesting thing about that is it applies to everything. You know, it applies to business as well. You probably had some things this year going through the course that we both got to know each other through, is like limiting beliefs about what you felt you could or couldn't achieve. They just got shattered in a good way, probably, you know. So it's the same as a lot of my clients who have had back pain for 7 years. This guy, after 12 weeks, his back is not fixed, but like he's out of the chronic pain, which for me is very hard to still believe that, because I didn't think that remote coaching would be as effective as it was. And that's another thing that I didn't think would be as helpful, because I thought you need to do rehab as a coach. You need to be with your person in person. You need to be with them, giving them feedback. But there's so many levers you can pull online around their environmental stuff that's actually going to be really effective for getting them, reducing all the risk factors, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And at the end of the day, like unless you are someone who can afford 4 or 5 times a week a personal trainer to assist you in your session and making sure that you do the exercise perfectly, I think online training can help, as you said, the person at a broader level and reach where the personal trainer cannot reach, because the personal trainer also have other clients, have many clients usually, and can give you an hour or two of his time every week, but then the rest of the time you can agree with me that there are 168 hours in the week, and if you see a professional 2 hours a week, it's not going to make a difference if you don't think about it, about your posture or about your pain most of the time.
Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree with that point.
Conor, how do you train yourself? How do you like to train, and what's your current training routine like?
I love skill-based training. So I guess if you look at my weekly program, it's generally 5 days a week. I like to combine body weight training with weights. So generally I'll do 2 weight lifting sessions, like a lower body squat focus day and a lower body deadlift focus day, usually on like a Tuesday and a Friday. And then Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'll do upper body work. So a combination of hand balancing and gymnastic rings. They're generally the things I do. And I just really enjoy the skill component. And I know, a lot of your clients are looking to improve aesthetics, but improve like all parts of their life. But I think you were saying that they like to look good as well, which I think everyone does. But I guess what I love about the type of training I do is it gets people away from that end goal, but that turns into their end goal anyway once they get proficient at these movements. So once someone is able to get strong on gymnastic rings or with hand balancing, they generally look really good with their upper body as a result of that anyway, but they're not focused on how they look every day, which I like that approach. And also I find from a compliance point of view, when I first started working with clients, I found it very hard to keep them engaged and excited about their training. And I used to do, traditional strength and conditioning. So, they do 5x5 or 3 sets of 10 with squatting. And after a few weeks, just saying, okay, this week you did 50 kilos, next week we're going to do 52.5 kilos, and the week after we're going to do 55.
Yeah.
That gets pretty boring for a lot of people. But if we say, this week we're doing like a push-up, and then next week we're going to do, or next month we're going to do like a push-up off the rings, and then ring dips, and then a ring muscle up. It's exciting, and they can see as they go up along the skills, there's no real ceiling to where they can get to, and it keeps people excited and engaged and coming back, month after month, which I feel I don't have to spend as much time trying to keep people motivated with this type of training.
Yeah, it's auto motivating to see that you are progressing in terms of leveling up the difficulty of each session, which I like. And I think it's very valuable that many trainees, as you said, struggle with motivation, and so having a performance-based goal, whatever it is, whether if it's a certain load in deadlift or a certain exercise, like advancing an exercise, like a gymnastic exercise, like you said, it's really, really valuable in terms of motivation. And we know that adherence to any program is the most important factors in terms of increasing the chance that you'll get the results that you want.
Yeah.
And do you have any particular performance goals at the moment? Like, I don't know, whether if it's lifting a certain load in deadlift, or I don't know, doing a certain number of pull-ups or muscle ups?
Yeah, so 5 muscle-ups, 5 strict muscle-ups, and a press to handstand and a handstand push-up. They're kind of the 3 long-term goals. The press to handstand is...
Press to handstand is like from press up to handstand, isn't it?
Wow, sorry, mate, you cut out there with the connection.
Oh, sorry. Is it the press to handstand? Is it what, like a press up and then into handstand?
The press to handstand is your legs are out in a straddle position, like so.
Yeah.
And you basically lean forward, put your hands on the ground, and it just lifts your legs up off the ground, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Really tough exercise. That's a long-term goal. That's probably going to be, if I can get that by this time next year, I'll be very happy. But it's nice to kind of start working towards something like that.
It's so great that you are you are working on this, because during the last lockdown, well, this current lockdown in Austria, I bought 2 rings, gymnastic rings, and I've been working pretty much all the time with them.
Great, that's awesome.
And I'm coming from a bodybuilding background, so you have to give me the credit of keeping an open mind. And yeah, I love it.
How do you find them? Do you like them?
I love it. I love them. Like, you can play with dips, so you have you can work on your strength, which I never thought it would be possible. Body weight. I mean, I knew you could do like a single arm press up, but depending on your level of training, on your level of training experience, it can be challenging to work on your strength without any other equipment. The rings gave me, and at my level, just enough to keep working on strength, hypertrophy, and to keep enjoying my training. So I love it. And I am curious, you know, as a bodybuilder, I am very structured in my training. So as you said earlier, like, I like to see the mini progression. I'm the kind of person who likes to know that if I did 3 sets of 10 with, I don't know, 100 kilos, I like to know that the week after I'm able to do 3 sets of 10 with an under than 1.25.
Yeah.
Although I see that with body weight, especially with rings, this is more difficult. Like mini track, especially with exercise, like I want to do a muscle up, like you said, a strict muscle up. So what I've been working on, I see that I find myself stuck in the flipping, and
transition.
Yes, on a transition between the pull up and the dip, and I try to break it down, like with a bit of reverse engineering. And I was like, okay, if I can really control the eccentric, there is a lot of chance I'm going to increase the chance that I'll be able to complete one muscle up, at least one. And it's been hard, but I have the feeling like I'm controlling myself. But I'm curious, how would you like track all these things in order to keep progressing on the long term?
Yeah, that's such a good question. And like with your muscle up, I'll actually send you through a video of a drill that you can try. It's a transition drill, and you basically work the rings from like, you know, from here to here. And but I'll send you the video, and that'll help you. Because I love working on the rings and showing people stuff in the rings. But from a tracking point of view, it's very different concept that I use a lot of the methodologies from a company called GMB Fitness, which is, they're the guys who taught me everything over the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm a lead trainer with them now. And we actually look at repetitions a lot differently to the way you would look at them. And not in a like this way is better in that way, but more of it looking at it from what's best for the population that we work with, which is real, just general population people who want to move better. And we actually give people timed sets. So instead of doing like 5 sets of 5, we'll do 5 sets of 30 seconds or 45 seconds. And the reason we get people to do time sets is we want them to focus on quality. So just quality repetitions, that's all. Because if I tell a new guy who maybe he was competitive with sports when he was younger, he hasn't trained for, 5 or 10 years properly, and I start telling him that I want him to do 15 push-ups or 5 or 8 dips, he will hit that number regardless of how bad it looks.
Okay.
So the 30 seconds of repetitions means I don't care if he does 1 rep or 10 reps, as long as they're all executed with excellent form, then that's a success and that's a win. And then usually that's kind of what I get clients to follow in the first 6 months, really, is not most things. They're not doing as many reps as they can. They're doing, they're working on the movement for, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and they're just focusing on the quality of each repetition. That's it. That's all we want them to do. And once they're proficient at that, then we can, start adding more volume and load and more reps and sets. But that's kind of the main I guess it's a very different approach that a lot of people take a bit of time to adjust and understand it. But once they see that it's all about the quality, because as a bodybuilder, if you do I don't know, like 12 muscle ups or 12 chin ups, and it's all like this with really, like a lot of guys might do in the gym, versus, fully all the way up, the muscular development you're going to get from the full rep is going to be way better. But we all have egos, so we'll want to hit the reps regardless, a lot of people. So it tends to work very well doing the timed work instead of the specific numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. I in a certain way, I hate a little bit the popular beliefs that if you are someone who I don't know, bodybuilding or powerlifting, then you have to lift in a certain way, and you have to also wear a particular clothes or something else. But there is no, like, to me, as we say in Italy, like, you smash an open door. And I'm super fan of doing things with good form and with a full range of motion. I like to think that when you're training, like, you should lift like a machine, as in like a robot, that every repetition looks the same and you are mastering what you are doing. So whether if it's a pull-up or push-up or bench press, whatever you do, it should target your muscle and not necessarily your joints. But yeah, I love your work, man. I'm curious, like, in terms of pain, in my experience, there is a pretty much a balance between the people, amongst the people I work with, of back pain, shoulder pain, knee pain, and neck pain. Neck pain is a little bit less common, but what's your experience? What's the most common source of pain, cause of pain between your clients?
Back pain, definitely, and then shoulder pain tends to be an issue, and a lot of people can start getting a bit of issues with shoulder pain when we start using the rings or doing handstands and that kind of stuff. So we just need to be very mindful of the load management and the amount of pushing and pulling movements they're doing. So generally, like with clients, as a rule of thumb, with a common client who is at a desk all day, we'll try and do a lot more pulling exercises initially than pulling, just to get them more balanced, because most people are spending their day, kind of hunched forwards. And if we do more pressing, they're just going to get even further forwards, and then shoulder impingement and stuff is quite common when that happens. But I would say, yeah, back pain and shoulder pain are the most common for the people I work with, I would say. Yeah.
And this is just a random question. As an online trainer, I'm sure you get asked a lot about how to fix stuff and what to do in certain situations. So if you were to recommend someone who doesn't have low back pain, but he might have a low back pain in, I don't know, a couple of years, what would you do? Is your mental process to go through when someone have any sort of pain? Let's say I have low back pain. What shall I do?
So if someone just randomly asked me, hey, I've got lower back pain, what should I do?
Yeah, what do you ask them to do, or what do you ask more information about?
I would go through the process of just, getting them to track their steps, definitely. And then, simple stuff like with lower back pain, it's a lot of times it's made worse from sitting. So if they can get their steps up, that's going to be an easy thing that they can just do. Looking at getting up and down out of their chair a lot more frequently, especially now in this new world that people are kind of like we talked about earlier, the incremental movement of, getting up and down for a coffee, going to the shop, going up and down the stairs of the workplace, all that's kind of disappeared. And then just, because if you're at home, just getting out of your chair and doing maybe a hip flexor stretch, doing some like glute bridges is such an easy exercise, but it's actually really beneficial because it strengthens their glutes, it strengthens their lower back, and it opens up the front of their hips as well. So that's a really kind of therapeutic exercise that does reduce a lot of the negatives of sitting. So that would be, and then something like a bird dog, like a simple core exercise, which just helps as well. So they're all small little things that, you know, my whole, I guess, ethos behind training is making it really easy and accessible for people and repeatable, because I want people to be able to do stuff for, like, there's no point getting a client amazing results over 8 weeks and then after 8 weeks they can't continue because the diet's too strict and the exercise is too intense, because they've just wasted 8 weeks of their life. I've wasted 8 weeks of their life, and they turn back to square one in a month later. So yeah, it's all just simple processes that you try and get people to do. So yeah, glute bridges, hip flexor stretch, bird dog, and getting up and down out of their chair. That's would be the easy kind of low hanging fruit option I'd recommend to someone like that.
And when Conor say the low hanging fruit is to referring to something that is easily done and doesn't have much cost, so you don't have to climb all the tree and possibly get hurt to do that. Okay. And I asked you that question because I mean, especially where I'm coming from in Italy, like people, when they have low back pain, they go to a specialist. Like they go to not to a specialist necessarily who gives them exercise, but as well a specialist, like a therapist who applies some mechanical like therapy, some manual therapy. But at the end of the day, like those people are always trying to save their lower back. So every time they have to pick up something off the floor, they mainly bend their knees and they keep their torso upright. So as you said, they never challenge their posterior chain, or they never strengthen it. So actually they have low back pain, but they have weak back, like weak lower back.
I'm really happy you said that, because that's a really good way of looking at injuries, is it's a result of weakness a lot of the time. So when people see like, oh, I'm actually just weak, that's my problem. And you probably should be weak in your posterior chain if you never train it and you're sitting your entire life. That's just, you can't get away with this stuff. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing. And and just trying to make things simple for people. You know, you don't have, like, of course, if you have lower back pain, I would recommend going to a physiotherapist and a proper specialist, you know, and I will work with a physiotherapist with a lot of clients. I stay within my scope of practice. That's a really, you know, I don't start trying to solve people's problems. If it's a serious back issue, we'll always work with the professional. But a lot of the times I have talked to clients who have chronic injuries, and I'll ask them, did a physio ask you to say to you anything about how long you're sitting for? No, they didn't. And I'm like, that's such a simple thing that they can address. Same with, and had another thing recently. Did a physio tell you to avoid the movements that are potentially hurting you for a few weeks? No, he said that should be fine. This is a guy, he has chronic shoulder issues. And my whole thing is eliminate all of the problems, potential risk factors for the first 4, 8, 12 weeks, and do the rehab, and then see if everything's working okay. Because, you know, like from a control point of view in a scientific experiment, you want to try and control as many factors as you can, eliminate all the potential risk factors, and then you can see if the rehab is actually working or not. But if the guy, I could be giving someone the best rehab program ever, but if they're doing a really damaging thing every day, like swimming and surfing for the shoulder at that moment, the rehab isn't going to work either way. So I was really confused by why that simple thing wasn't addressed straight away.
Yeah. And this is, I think, one of the reasons, going back to what we discussed earlier, why online coaching, most of the time, in my experience, can really impact people's life, whether personal training might not be the best solution. And this is one of the things, like perhaps you have someone with I don't know, shoulder pain, and they are doing everything right. So they are following your advice with the program. They are doing their exercises, they are walking more, they're more active, but also maybe they are playing volleyball once a week. And with personal training, maybe it's not something that necessarily comes up because perhaps it happened, I don't know, 6 days before the session. But with online coaching, when you do your weekly check-in or group calls, you can find out about those things. And perhaps the person keep having shoulder pain, although he's doing all the exercises that you gave them, and you might be confused because on the paper you say, okay, we've been doing this, and the shoulder pain still didn't go away. So you can have a look more about his lifestyle and find out that actually he's been using the shoulder perhaps in a bad way once a week regularly.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's, that's something that, when I was in person, a lot of the times it would just be that 60-minute session. We do the 60-minute session and then they're gone. And I guess it's the same a lot of times with a physio. They treat the site, but the background and lifestyle stuff, they don't spend as much time on it, and they don't find out that information that can be so beneficial from our point of view, learning how to figure out how to best help the client going forwards.
Cool. Very valuable stuff, guys. So if you ever dealt with pain or as well, you want to be stronger or more flexible, head over Conor's profile and check out his work. He's amazing. And Conor, I like to ask my guest a sub $100 purchase that has the most impacted your life. So what is that?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this, and I would have to say it would be the Kindle. I've had it for about 3 or 4 years, and that's given me amazing value. So because I was traveling a lot, I had it for traveling. I prefer reading like proper books, but it's so handy, so easy. And yeah, I love reading. I love reading fiction. I used to read a lot of nonfiction, but now I love fiction as a way of just kind of switching off and resetting everything. So I would say the Kindle would be the best purchase for about $100.
Love it. Reading is always one of the best investment for sure. Conor, when can people find you and start working with you, or simply get in touch with you or check your work?
So the social media would be the best way. And if you want to kind of see more about what I do have a free Facebook group called Mobility Mastery. So you can, join the group, and then I give away a lot of free information around pain, about rehab, mindset stuff as well. So that's kind of the best place to find all of what I'm about. Cool.
I'm going to share all the links in the description. But thanks so much for being here today. It was such a lot.
Thanks for having me. It was a good chat. Really good to chat to you.
Thanks. We surely gonna do one again in the future. I'd like to talk about posture more in depth, because I think is a problem or a topic people are very interested in knowing more about. But hey, good luck for the future, and we're gonna stay in touch.
Thanks, mate, and best of luck with the podcast.
Thank you very much. All right, guys, for today's episode is everything, and we're gonna talk soon. Ciao, ciao.